Parents of Reddit, what was the best lie that your child has told you that you knew was a lie but wanted to see how big of a hole they would put themselves in? My son took fake Halloween blood to school, soaked his forehead in it and, clutching a cloth, staggered into a whole school assembly. The teachers panicked and rushed him to the on-site nurse. Obviously when she cleaned it away there was no injury, so he feigned surprise and said he must have fallen face first into some soft fruit on the road outside. A teacher walked him up and down looking for aforementioned fruit, and when they couldn't find it he said a dog must have eaten it, and then pretended to have lost his memory. He still insists it was true. He was 12 at the time. Must have been one boring assembly to go to those lengths to avoid it. My dad skipped school and went down to the brick wall at the harbor. As he was riding, he lost control and the bike and him fell into the water. Some old guy fished his bike out and gave it back to him. Next morning his dad asked him how school went yesterday. My dad said great. Are you sure? His dad responded. Yeah. My dad said, school was good. Then his dad asked him to check out the front page of the local newspaper. Top of the page was a picture of him receiving his freshly fished bike from the old guy at the harbor. Ahaha, something similar happened to a co-worker of mine. One day his car suddenly didn't work, so he couldn't come into work that day. Unrelatedly, Lady Gaga was making a surprise visit to town. Oddly enough, the next day there was a picture of him in the paper at the front of the crowd around Lady Gaga. I still wonder how he got downtown to see her without a car. One day when I was 4 years old, my dad was walking down the hallway and saw me standing there, slightly surprised to see him. I was facing the wall with a mangled tube of my stepmother's bright red lipstick smeared all over my fingers. My dad looked at me, then to the wall. I was standing at the last letter of my name that had been written in, you guessed it, bright red lipstick. My dad looked back at me and said, who did this? Now, I was raised in a Roman Catholic family and was taught the very quick and fierce consequences related to lying. And I knew a lie was when you said something that you could prove wasn't true. I thought then of my stepbrother Danny. Danny lived in this house and had access to his mother's lipstick. Yeah, this would work. I looked my dad square in the eye and said, maybe Danny did it. He laughed so hard and congratulated me on not technically saying a lie. While I had to clean it up, I wasn't punished further. Maybe Danny did it became a staple excuse used by everyone in my family for years growing up, even after my dad and his wife divorced. My family friends did the lipstick all over the mirror thing as a kid. It was multiple lipsticks. Apparently recently the parents had just watched The Usual Suspects and my friend wondered what the title meant, so they explained the concept. When he was caught his parents asked what happened, and he said I have no idea who did this. Round up the usual suspects. One time my parents left for the weekend to go to San Diego to attend my stepmom's graduation since she was taking online college. Instead of having a party of anything, I invited like 5 friends over and we set up a huge LAN party in the living room. Some dude brought 2 computers for some reason and ordered tons of pizzas and soda. Went on for like 3 days and my parents came home later that night and knew immediately I had friends over. I know this because they came into my room and asked who was over and I kept denying it. Then I just digging the hole deeper like so. Parent, who was over this weekend? Me. What are you talking about? No one was over. Parent, no one at all? Me. Nope, no one. Parent, then why did you order 7 pizzas? Me. I was hungry. Parent, and you ate them all by yourself? Me. I was very hungry. Parent, you know we have a camera in the living room, right? Me. Crap. They told me they were disappointed in me. Not that I had invited friends over, but that the worst thing I would do as a teenager when given an opportunity was have a LAN party with 5 other guy friends. They still don't let me live it down. 5-year wrote her name on the bathroom wall but made a few letters backwards. She can write her name perfectly. Her older sibling has dyslexia. 5-year lies until she's blue in the face, thinking I will think it's her older sibling, who wasn't even in the area when it was written. My wife cooked an awful crock pot meatloaf once. It tasted like liver. My wife even said she hated it. My daughter said she ate all of hers and it was good. I know that she fed it to the dog because when he eats something he believes is tasty, the lip licking he does is a dead giveaway. More of a con than a lie. My co-worker told me she got a weird text from her mother, so she looked at the previous texts. My coworker's daughter, 7 years old, had sent a text to her mom, the girl's grandma, saying, "What are you getting daughter's name for Christmas again?" Genius. If texting had been around when I was a kid, I would have done this for sure. That he was on a boogie board in the Atlantic Ocean and punched a great white shark in the face to protect his sister from being eaten when he was 6. Who knows, he might have just sucker punched some poor random fish or another kid snorkeling. Can't rule that out either. My 2-year-old son went through a spitting phase. I hated it. So every time he spat, I would put him in his cot and he would stay there for 2 minutes. So this one time I did that and I stood outside the door. I could hear him carrying on spitting, so I went back in and asked if that's what he was doing. He was saying no. I asked what was it then and thought for a minute and said the wind. It was the first lie he ever told. I became aware that my 10-year-old stepson wasn't using soap when he showered. As a test, I put his soap and shampoo under the sink. When it was still there after he showered, I knew I had him. I asked him if he used soap and he said yes. So I asked him to show me his soap. He couldn't find it. I opened up the cabinet and showed it to him. He then said that he had put it there. My stepson is a terrible liar, which I am okay with. Not a parent. I was babysitting a little girl that was 8 or 9 years old. She had just gotten a pet hamster and her parents told her before they left that under no circumstances was she to let the hamster out of its cage. Once the parents were safely out of the house, she went to get herself a drink. She came back to the room I was sitting in, without a drink, and told me that the hamster had escaped. Okay, I go into the room, and indeed the hamster is not in the cage. He had somehow opened the door and conveniently closed it behind him. Q. Wow, he is so clever from the child. I start looking for the hamster. Little girl is so shocked. I just don't know how he got out. MMHMMM. I'm searching the kitchen when I see the lid of the butter dish wobbling up and down. It must be a ghost. Yeah, sure, a hamster stealing ghost. Obviously, the hamster is in the butter dish. The little girl is now really going for it. He must have gotten out of the cage all by himself, shut the door behind him, crawled across the kitchen, climbed up the counters, opened the lid to the butter dish, climbed in, and put the lid back on. Freaking premium hamster this kid has got. When I was 4, my dad told me to do something and I said, "Shut up." He looked at me and said, "What did you just say to me?" I said, "Oh, I wasn't talking to you, Dad. I was talking to the monster behind you who was saying mean things about you. Got out of trouble. Nice. Dang, that's smooth." This morning, my 2-year-old daughter's daycare is in a shopping center with a realtor next door. The realtor's window has one of those LED signs that scroll messages about house sales, etc. She saw it this morning and said that it was a school sign. I asked her what it said, and she said school is closed tomorrow. Stay home. I once told my parents that I was going over to my friend Pat's house. I was definitely not going there. I was going to do illegal activities with the undesirables my parents forbade me from seeing. Little did I know that Pat and his whole family were coming over for dinner that night. My mom called me about an hour after I left and asked me if I wanted to talk with Pat, who was sitting right next to her. I just hung up and immediately started to walk home. God damn it, Pat, you were supposed to meet me to do drugs. 5-year-old used rock to carve her name on car. Blames 3 and 2-year-old brothers. This is right after incident where her name is on wall, but corrects me after I say pen on wall to I used pencil, and she still didn't know she gave herself away. My 9-year-old daughter was really invested in a plot to gain attention. My leg hurts. Stop walking so quick, and persisted this through 6 aisles of the supermarket. Finally she got very pissy and shouted after me, "You don't even care." Then I pointed out she had swapped limping leg from left to right 2 aisles ago and she had the right silent strap on after that. I'm not a parent, but when I was in elementary school, I had a friend who was a pathological liar. Usually she lied about stupid stuff, having read the most recent Harry Potter book before anyone else, owning all the American Girl dolls, things like that. It was annoying, but we just ignored it most of the time. One day in 3rd grade, she went too far. She came into school and told us that her cousins, who lived in our town, were our pet and murdered. We didn't know what our pay was, so we asked her, and she said it meant that the murderer had cut all their skin off. We were 99% sure this was a lie, as it would have been all over the news if it were true. I asked my mom if my friend even had cousins in our town, and it turns out she didn't. She had cousins in a town in another state that happened to have the same name. One of my other friends was on a soccer team with the lying girl. At their game later that week, she walked up to the girl's father and said, "I'm so sorry about liars' cousins." When he asked what she was talking about, she went on, "I heard they were our pet and murdered." Naturally, our lying friend got a talk with her parents after that. She later admitted to us that it wasn't true, one of the only times she ever confessed to a lie. When my daughter was grounded from her computer, she used my password to log in. I asked her how, and she said she just guessed my password. It was a strong password, so I knew this wasn't true. I eventually found out that, several weeks before, she had found a text file I left on her brother's computer with passwords I used for setting it up. She copied every username and password onto a piece of paper and saved it. She was 9. I hope you've learned better password security. My brother was being potty trained and had an accident. Pooped his pants. My dad asked, "Did you poop your pants, Jake?" Jake: "No, Dad." "Who pooped your pants then, Jake?" "Sis." My dad then grounded me for pooping my brother's pants. Finally the guilt got to him and he admitted it. My 6-year-old insists she can speak cat and the cat asked her to dress it up and carry it around like a baby. Apparently she can speak dog too and the dog asks for broccoli cause it's his favorite food. I speak neither cat nor dog, but I'm pretty sure she's lying about them telling her these things. I used to mow lawns in my childhood high school. All my friends were at swimming pools, screwing around, playing video games, etc. I finally got fed up with it, so I started farming out my work. I'd get $50 for a yard, but I'd pay another kid $20 to do it. Since we were kids, my friends all wanted a slice of the pie. After a while I had about 60% of the yards being done by other people, and I'd only have to do one big one and run the trimmer. Got busted when one of my friends broke the lawn mower. He bent the frick out of the blade on a tree root. He brought back the lawn mower and I put it away. My dad was cleaning out the bottom of the deck and found it. Asked me how the mower was running. I replied like a top. Honestly, I'm not really sure I really find anything wrong with what you did, unless it was your parents paying you or something. Everyone who worked got paid, but nobody got full payment. Seems like business to me. When I was like 3 or 4 I used to staple a piece of tape, then tape it to my arm or something and color all around the staple and my arm with red Crayola marker and run to my parents crying that I was badly bleeding and needed help, all so that I wouldn't have to go to bed right away. I never got away with that one. Points for creativity, though. Last week my daughter told me that her teacher thought they had too many weekly tests, which is true. Every good lie contains some truth. So her teacher cancelled school on Monday, but just for her class. Even though I knew she was full of it, she did not smirk or smile at all. So I walked toward my cell phone and told her I'd verify that with her teacher. Surprise, surprise, a full confession that she had school on Monday after all. And she would have got away with it too, if it weren't for you meddling parents. Not a parent, but me. When I was around 10 I was not allowed to play games with an M rating. Well, one summer my whole family took a trip to visit my cousins a few states away. Now I love this because I would always play the forbidden fruits of my gaming career. So me and my cousin are playing Halo Reach's Forge, when my dad walks right in. In hindsight we were only racing on those small warthog. I think they were called mongoose, and he probably thought we were racing. I immediately run, grab the game case, and sit in it. My dad asks what I'm sitting on and my brain comes up with the best thing to keep me from getting in trouble. A PDVD. Oh okay, well as long as it's not an M-rated video game. My fiance's brother is the kind of uncle that ruthlessly tickles the kids in the family. Shortly after we got engaged, one of the younger kids comes up to me and says, "You know, if you tickle me, my parents will sue you." I laugh and respond, "I don't know if that's true, buddy." He starts that fervent nodding younger kids to and says, "Yaha, you aren't my uncle yet, so they will." After thinking about it for a second, he adds, "And if they don't, I will." If I were the kid, I'd sue for negligent infliction of emotional distress and battery. When I was 16, my mother walked into my room at 3 AM to ask what all the noise was. After drinking half a bottle of vodka, I was vomiting out the window at the time. Mom, what's going on in here? Me, I ate bad McDonald's. A while later it came up and she laughed at me and said I obviously regretted what I had done, so she let me be. I used to do the same thing but always blamed it on Chipotle, which in hindsight wasn't a great idea because my parents wouldn't get me eat Chipotle ever. I would have to eat Chipotle in secret. Flash forward to my 21st birthday. Before I left with my friends to hit the town, my mom said with the biggest crap eating grin, "Now don't eat too much Chipotle tonight." Should have realized she always knew. Was a nanny for toddler twins and their older siblings. One weekend, I got there, and there was Sharpie all over the wall of the front hall. I asked their mom which of them did it. She told me who they blamed. 1. Their older sister who was at her dad's for the week. 2. Their older brother who had been at his dad's for the past 2 days. 3. My dad. 4. My youngest sister. 5. My mom, who was in late stage Alzheimer's at that point. 6. A couple people they knew from the bar their mom worked at. 7. Their older sister who had only been to their house once. 8. Their sister's dog. 9. Me. I'm surprised by how close to the end I was, considering I was at their house more often than anyone but the mom and the first 2 older siblings. 10. Her. Of course, they've got nothing on my one big lie. I once forged a note from God. My kid was late once and I asked where he had been, and he told me he was getting his head jogged, blessed. My brother made up an evil twin who only did bad things and then would frame my brother for doing them. My parents let this evil twin switcheroo go on for months, mostly because every time it happened, they started laughing too hard to punish him, until finally one day my dad managed to keep a straight face long enough to tell my brother that, since the evil twin wasn't here, my brother was going to be punished in his stead, and so the twin needed to go away. I also remember getting mad at my mom when I was 3 or 4 and telling her that she wasn't my real mom and that she'd stolen me from my real family because she was an evil witch and my real parents were looking for me. Honestly, still kind of holding out hope that this one is true. I've been told by my sister and the people she talked to cause she has a big mouth that my dad wasn't my real dad. I was devastated. I was in daycare. It wasn't until I was in 2nd grade that I found it was true, and that my mom wasn't my real mom, too. It was a hard time for me. Hello friendo, you have been visited by the cozy puppers of Lazy Sundays. Upvote now or you may never have a good relax ever again. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.